Vijay Drakoi. I will speak now.
Dear friend, you're probably wondering where I've been at lately and what I've been up to. The truth of it is, I've been on vacation. And oh boy, what a vacation it has been. It started almost by accident. You see, I sort of fell asleep in the back of a pickup truck one night, and when I finally woke up, I was in a completely different place. A different city entirely, in fact. Now, being the sensible possum that I am, I decided to take advantage of the situation. I figured I'd wander around for a bit, get my bearings, see the sights, and eventually I'd figure out where in the heck I was and be able to get back home. So, after blundering around for a while, and getting distracted by all the new sights and sounds and smells, exceptionally fine pickings in the dumpsters here, let me tell you, I finally managed to get mostly unlost. Turns out I was in St. Louis, a fine, great, bustling city, full of life, light, and cuisine. Most of what I got of the cuisine wasn't exactly in its freshest state, but I didn't really mind. A possum's got to take what he can get, yeah? Anyway, I tried to make my way back home after a few days on tour of the town. Fun fact, the destination of a motor vehicle does not always correlate with the state printed on its license plate. I did not initially realize this, and that's how I wound up on the outskirts of Des Moines, Iowa. Friend, I have never, in all my strange anomalous time, seen so much freaking corn. There was corn everywhere. Corn in the fields, naturally. This is corn country after all. But there was corn everywhere else too. Corn in the ditches, and corn in the yards, and corn growing on the roofs of the houses. There were strips of corn growing in the middle of the streets, and in the back seats of automobiles. I even saw a patch of corn growing on the entire roof of the local big box superstore. That much corn isn't good for the imagination. I had to get out of there, and eventually I did. Although I think I made a very poor decision in selecting my mode of transportation. Due to exceptionally bad planning, my escape from Corn Central resulted in my spending the next 17 hours perched atop a refrigerated semi-trailer, containing what I can only imagine was about 30 tons of mostly frozen fish. I say mostly, because some of it was certainly not frozen, and the trailer itself was not entirely sealed. It wasn't so bad when the rig was moving, but the driver liked to stop a lot for meals and fuel, and at those times, I would liken it to spending a cool autumn night out under the stars, sleeping in a giant pile of dead carp. 17 fish-scented miserable hours later, and we were in Tomah, Wisconsin. I've heard it's a great place to be from. There's a lot of good food to be had in the industrial district, if you go to the right dumpsters outside the pet food packing plants. That's where I spent most of my time in the place. It looked interesting. It's a little sketchy, though. The wildlife there is a bit on the wild side. The skunks rove about in family gangs, the raccoons are almost as big as I am, and there were these woodchucks living on the edge of the parking complex. Beef and beer-fed marmots, all round and jiggly and living their very best life. But I had to get away from there after a time. You see, that semi-trailer full of fish, it wasn't the only one of those in the industrial park. Maybe the local wildlife is used to it, but I'm no local. Naturally, I hitched another ride out of there as soon as I could. Up to this point, friend, I'd had rather indifferent luck in terms of finding rides. I imagine traveling is easier for humans. But when you're only a 3-foot-tall talking possum, travel becomes a very awkward thing to do. Say you want to go to another town. You just go down to the bus station, go into the ticket office, buy a ticket, hop on a bus, and some hours later you're someplace else. Well, I can't do that so easy, so I have to get creative. Fortunately, I'm not so chubby that I can't stow away in hard-to-reach places on automobiles. Long story short, through various highway-based hijinks, I made my anomalous way to Kansas City. And there, I discovered the Cheese Caves. Don't ask me how I got in there. Probably best you don't know. It might put you on some sort of watch list. Suffice it to say, I got into the place where the government stores all the cheese. It was like heaven. What's that old movie? Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's the one. You know that scene at the end, where that guy is pushing the big wooden crate around in a giant warehouse full of big wooden crates? Well, imagine that, except the warehouse is a cave, and instead of big wooden crates, it's full of cheese. Acres and acres of cheese. Unwatched, unguarded, unmonitored. I've been living on cheese for a week solid now. As a side note, if this letter happens to have a slightly cheesy scent to it, just know that I'm using a wheel of Wisconsin cheddar as a writing desk while I write. Well, most of a wheel, anyway. I've been at this letter for a while now, and I got hungry. Rest assured, friend, I am planning to make my way back to my usual stomping grounds very soon. Just as soon as I've explored this underground smorgasbord of cheese just a little more thoroughly. With best regards, and hoping to see you again in good health, your anomalous friend, Red Leicester. P.S. You haven't by any chance happened to remember yet how you wound up in that dumpster, have you? I just remembered that strange bit of unsolved trivia and thought I'd ask. Red.